Mom. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If everyone can get situated, we're going to get started. Traffic, I hear, is a nightmare out there, which isn't really unusual for Atlanta. So we probably should have started this thing at 9 p.m. so that everybody could get here in time. I'm Tina Deskovich. I'm the co-founder of Moms for Liberty. This is Giving Parents a Voice Town Hall. We've been doing them around the country with a fabulous turnout, and it's really a time to bring communities together with their elected leaders to really talk about education and what's happening in education and what's happening with parental rights around the country. I know Georgia has had some interesting things going on the last few years with school choice and parental rights bills, and so it's really a fun place for us to come and have these conversations with you guys. So thank you for partnering with us, for being here, for taking time out on a weeknight, for putting up with that horrible traffic and the cold weather, because to me it's really cold out there. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to cut down everything I was going to say because we're starting a little bit late, and we have a great program for you tonight. We are going to start off with a really special treat from Avi Radford. She is an 8th grader with more courage than most people in America have today. She is going to get up here, and she is going to sing the national anthem a cappella for us. Following Avi, we are going to hear from the great Alveda King. And I'm going to read her bio now so that I don't have to pause after the national anthem. You want me to shorten it? Such a great bio. She uses her God-given talents and abilities to glorify God and uphold the sanctity of life from womb to the tomb and beyond. She currently serves as a board member and senior advisor to Priests for Life, on whose pastoral team she served for some 16 years. She serves as chair of the American First Policies Institute Center for the American Dream. She is also the voice for Silent No More Awareness campaign, sharing her testimony of 2 abortions, God's forgiveness and healing. Dr. Alveda King is the daughter of the late slain civil rights activist Reverend A.D. King and the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a Christian evangelist. Author of the bestseller book King's Rules and We're Not Colorblind, which she is doing book signings back there after the event this evening. She is the founder of Speak for Life and currently serves as a Fox News Channel contributor and is the host of Alveda King's House on Fox Nation and Newsmax opinion contributor. Evangelist King lives in Atlanta. Right here is her home base, where she is a grateful mother of 6 and a blessed grandmother. So first up, we're going to have Avi, and then followed by Dr. King. After Dr. King, we're going to have our chapter chair, Julie Mock of Oconee County, give us our Madison Minute. Avi. Come on up.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That was just fabulous. And you know, I never say that the young people are our future. They are now. We're breathing the same air. And she's a young leader, and I'm an old leader. That's the difference. Can you put your right hand over your heart as well? One more time. And just let's sing the very end of How Great Thou Art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. Take it to the end. How great thou art, how great thou art. Give God a hand clap. Hallelujah. I'm going to be very brief, and then I'm going to pray. And I brought some free stuff tonight. Come on over to the table. We brought a few books, too. I won't be unhappy if you buy a book. I'll sign it. But we brought some free stuff, some information that moms need. It wasn't so long ago that America was saying, what are we going to do? Everything is so terrible. Then some mama bears rose up, supported by the daddy bears, and went to work and took many, many offices in the school boards of America. And that has made a tremendous difference. Don't stop. We are occupying territory. And there's a scripture in the Bible, and then I'm going to go ahead and really pray. There's a scripture in the Bible, and it's in John 17:21, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you've sent me. One thing that I've done for all the young people is to work with Coral Ridge and my organization, Speak for Life. And we're coming up with a curriculum, not for adults to teach at home, the young people, but the young people themselves when they get to school and they want to write their papers or do their art or their business plans and all that they do, even on social media, and know how to defend the morals and principles and values that are so important. So we are going to have that curriculum for you real soon. How are we going to be one? Now, this is crazy. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to call any names. I'm not going political. Believe it or not, I'm not endorsing anymore. I'm praying. I'm endorsing no candidates. I do have a very good friend. If you want to call his name out, you can, but you'll see me shaking his hand, and he's always doing this. Do y'all know who I'm talking about? One of my really good friends. Anyhow, just consider this. Usually the enemy or the opposite side or whoever we're running against knows how to consolidate. And they pick a common enemy and they stay there. Now what we do, we forget who the common enemy is. I won't ask you if you know who it is because it's the devil, right? Not humans, not humans. We're one blood, one human race. And if Ginger Howard was with me tonight, we wrote that book. But the devil is the enemy. And then what are we fighting against? What's the common cause that we can unite on? It's not even really being a Republican or a conservative. Most of us want to stop abortion and save mamas and babies and families and daddies and communities. Most of us want to do that. Most of us want to stop transgender surgeries of minors. Most of us want to stop human trafficking. And I'm going to say something very controversial right now. Please listen, just really pay attention. The Bible says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Has anybody ever read that? Now, the Hamas may be by blood Palestinians, but all Palestinians are not Hamas. And the Jewish community, the Christian community, the Palestinians who are not Hamas community, we need to pray. We need to identify the common enemy. The Bible did not say blow up everybody that you don't agree with, did it? Last time I checked. Okay? It said pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I do. I'm a Christian. I'm not a Jew. But I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I ask you to do that. Fear not. Don't be afraid. Fear not. Love hard. Now, Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, help us to identify the common enemy. And as the speakers are getting ready to come, and some of them have greeted me from the panel and who are going to be here tonight, and I just welcome all the speakers and all of you who are here tonight. Father, help us to identify the common enemy, the devil. Help us to unite around the issues and stop fighting each other. Father, let these mama bears keep running. Hallelujah. Glory to God. And help us to support life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness from the womb to the tomb and beyond. Now, 30 seconds. You all know this one. This little light of mine, sing. I'm gonna let it shine, sing.
How blessed am I get to follow Alveda King. That's pretty amazing. My name's Julie Mock. Thank you, Tina, for coming to Georgia, and for all of you for coming out tonight. I'm grateful for the opportunity to give the Madison Minute this evening on behalf of my chapter, the first Georgia chapter, Moms for Liberty, Oconee County. I think the quote that I chose speaks not only to the very basis for the founding of our country, but it's very much a part of what we see happening each and every day today to those who walk in faith and those who speak out boldly against government overreach. And if you aren't feeling this, then perhaps you need to speak louder. Thomas Jefferson, in his letter to Judge James Sullivan on May 21st, 1805, said, "The patriot, like the Christian, must learn that to bear revilings and persecutions is a part of his duty, and in proportion as the trial is severe, firmness under it becomes more requisite and praiseworthy. It requires, indeed, self-command." Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. King. Again, she has her books back there for sale and is doing autograph signings if you guys want to step back there even during the program. And thank you, Julie. I forgot to do a few recognitions, so just real quick, I want to have our chapter chairs. I think we have 5 chapters in Georgia now. A chapter covers a county. I think we have 2 of them here tonight. We've got Meg, who's a brand new chapter. If you want to stand in, Julie, please recognize these ladies for the hard work that they do. And then we have, I think, 4 or 5 people from our National Moms for Liberty team here that helped put this together. So ladies, including Tia, who's here, who you'll hear from in a little bit too. So give them a round of applause. And then I always want to recognize if there's any current school board members, school board member candidates, or anyone that is almost going to announce running as a school board candidate, please stand because we are grateful for you. I know you're in the room. I know there's another one. I know there's... So you may just have gotten an announcement maybe for a local school district candidate, and so... We're real excited about that. Most of you know I served on a school board. Near and dear to my heart is that position. It's one of the closest positions you can serve in to your community, and in my opinion, the most important. So thank you, gentlemen. All right, we're going to get on with our program. Right now, I'm going to welcome to the stage Miss Kelly Loeffler, a former U.S. Senator. She is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a former U.S. Senator from Georgia. She was raised on a family farm, and Kelly built a nearly 3 decades career in the automotive and financial services industry. She was appointed to the U.S. Senate in 2020, where she served as a member of the Senate Agricultural Help, Joint Economic Veterans Affairs Committees. Today, Kelly volunteers her time and resources as the founder of and chairwoman of Greater Georgia, a nonpartisan statewide voter mobilization organization. She has built a track record of civic engagement in Georgia, including as a professional sports team owner and through numerous boards and philanthropies. Today, she serves on the boards of Public Square, the Republican State Leadership Committee, the University System of Georgia Foundation, and Atlanta's Holy Spirit Preparatory School. Please come and join me up here, Kelly.
Don't push buttons.
Don't push. Oh, it's on. It's working. Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's great to be here. I'm really honored and excited to talk about some really important things. And just thank you and Tiffany for your leadership. It's really humbling to share the stage with you.
Oh my goodness, that is, I would like to say that in reverse. Tiffany and I are just a couple of moms. I don't know how many of you are familiar with us, but just a couple of moms that ran for school board. There were rats in her kids' school, and a lot of things going on in my district, and just anybody can run for school board. Anybody can win, and you can serve your community. So, we are grateful for you and your support and help. So I just want to talk to you about a few things. You have such a fascinating life and career. I was reading up on you. And I think one of the most interesting things was that you were a WNBA team owner. That is, what a fun opportunity that must have been. And before that, you were a high school athlete. But I don't know what sport you played. Maybe it was multiple sports, so you can start with that. But I want you to talk about your experience and what role you think sports plays in kids' lives in high school, because a lot of times schools are talking about cutting budgets, and sometimes those are the first things on the chopping block, and why it's important to our next generation to be involved in sports. And if you want to extend, I'm sorry, I know I just keep going, if you want to extend on some thoughts that you might have about boys playing on girls' teams, I bet this crowd would be very fascinated to hear about that.
I have some views. But first, let me ask, do we have any former high school athletes in the room? Okay, lots. So everyone kind of understands the value, and you think back to your childhood memories, probably a lot relate to sports. And I was born and raised on a farm, very shy, awkward farm kid. But through sports and other things like having great parents and going to Sunday school and getting faith in God and all these things. But sports really made a big difference in my life. I played softball. I was a long distance runner. I played basketball, volleyball, anything I could do, none of it great. But I did go on in life to run marathons. And so that foundation, and I've often compared many things in life to marathoning. Like when you think about the resilience you need in sports, you get knocked down, you stand back up. In fact, in high school, my nickname was NBC, and for a long time they wouldn't tell me what it stood for, and it was newborn calf, because they said when you would fall down, you would pop right back up, and I was really tall and skinny, and they said you look like a calf. Well, you have to grow up on a farm to know what a newborn calf looks like, I guess, but anyway, the whole point being in sports taught me so much resilience, and I learned much more from losing than winning, and I thought sports were so important, and most of all, it wasn't about me, it was what I saw it did for the community. You can think about how it pulls the communities that you lived in, that you live in today, what it means for your kids to be able to have that chance at bat, that starting line, the thrill of victory, agony of defeat. And in fact, I saw it all the way from, playing softball all the way through watching. I lived in Illinois and Chicago during the Bulls run. And I saw how the Bulls in the 90s pulled that city together. So when I had a chance to be a 50% owner of the WNBA team in Atlanta, I said yes, because I wanted to experience what it felt like to bring people from all walks of life together. And sports, as Nelson Mandela so eloquently said, it has this power to unite people like nothing else in the world. Really, it's more powerful than governments. It speaks to youth in a language that they understand. So I owned and was a proud owner of the WNBA team here in Atlanta for a decade. Built the team, created a huge fan base. We went to the WNBA championships 3 times. Just really was one of 12 teams in the country. But in 2020, when the league said, we are going to get behind BLM Inc., and that's going to be our identity for the league, I looked into it, because I always, as a businesswoman, I'm always like, okay, who are we surrounding ourselves with? What are we saying to our fans? I looked into it, and I saw the very Marxist, pro-Marxist message. The founders of BLM Inc. were self-professed Marxists, promoting the radical trans ideology, anti-Semitic, and the list goes on. Anti-parent, they supported the disruption of the nuclear family. And I said, wait a minute, our sport's all about daddy-daughter games, supporting teachers and police and breast cancer survivors in our community. It's not about radical pro-trans agenda activism. And for that, for speaking out, I was threatened to be canceled. People across the country called for me to lose the ownership of the team. I did not. I stood firm with that. And what I found was I received thousands of messages from people across the country saying, thank you for being willing to stand up and have a backbone and say things that we can't say, because we had questions too. We didn't think it was right, but no other team owner, no other senator would do it. And so when I learned, I stood in that moment and took the heat. That has aged really well, because now we've got BLM Inc. organization has been a fraud. They never intended to live up to their name, and now they're pro-Hamas. Similarly, on transgender, when it came time in 2020 to address that issue, I was the first U.S. Senator ever in the history of the country to introduce protecting women and girls sports, that legislation in the Senate. Now, I'll be candid, only 4 other Republican senators signed on to that bill in 2020. And in fact, many members of my own official staff didn't even want me to introduce the bill. They said, it's divisive, we don't need it, it's not an issue. Well, men had already been winning women's sports championships. Little did I know that 2 years later in Georgia, a man would win an NCAA championship in swimming from Riley Gaines. And actually, Riley and I were in this building about a month ago talking about that moment. Most recently in Marietta, a male just won all the jiu-jitsu gold medals here because the women didn't want to compete against him in jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't want to compete against a male in jiu-jitsu. This is happening over and over. Now, the U.S. House of Representatives has actually passed that bill that I introduced that I couldn't even hardly get any senators on, except for Blackburn, Cotton, Lee, and Langford. And I appreciated that they stood with me on that. But I was attacked for that as well. Again, that has aged well. I am very proud that I stood up and did that. And I viewed that as my role as a leader, to stand in the heat, to take the heat, and to speak for people who maybe didn't have the degrees of freedom or the responsibility that I did as a leader. So it has showed me that there's so much freedom in speaking your position and being proud of where you stand, and to never be silenced, because the #1 form of censorship is self-censorship.
Gosh, I love that. Yes, let's please give her a round of applause for the courage to do what was right when others were not doing it. I think that might be the theme. As I'm thinking about a lot of the discussions we're going to have this evening, I'm going to go ahead and set the theme as courage, and being courageous when no one else will stand with you, because it's a hard time to be courageous. And I'm thank you for standing when you did. The reason Moms for Liberty was formed is because Tiffany and I, who did not know each other, were courageous in our own communities. I lost my re-election because I stood against a mask mandate for children and forced quarantining. And everyone told me, if you do this, you're going to lose your election. I was speaking to one of the consultants here earlier, and I said, my consultant said, you have to go in there and vote for this. And I said, my conscience says I can't. And so bravery, courage, we need it. We need more of it. Great things happen when you stand up. So thank you.
And look at the impact you've had, because now it's a much bigger impact that you've been able to have. Yeah, you might have lost the battle, but you're winning the war. You're getting there.
So we're winning the war. I love that. Okay, let's talk about Georgia a little bit. What a great state you guys have here. I just want a little disclaimer here. I lived in Georgia for 5 years. I went to Valdosta State University, the little college in the southern part of the state. And so I learned to say y'all for a few years. But I do love this state. I spent a lot of time in Atlanta during that time. It seems like states have led the charge to protect children. Georgia passed its own ban on boys and girls sports and a ban on divisive concepts in the classroom. Based on your experience in Washington, what do you think the federal government's role should be in this?
As little as possible. So Washington, I was just reading about the Department of Education today. It's funded at $80 billion a year. The funding, that equates to about $1.5 million per K through 12 student in America. It's not going to that. Okay, the Department of Education is really about student loans right now. That's where the money goes. That's okay. I mean, we need to provide some assistance for disadvantaged communities, but if you go to the Department of Education website, it's not about educating our children. So they have abdicated that. It's being also abdicated to the teachers' unions. As we know, during COVID, the unions demanded that kids not return to school. They were interfering in CDC decisions. And so when you have that much power in Washington and political power, not just authority power, but political power, we know it's time to bring it back to the states. And I will just tell you that $80 billion in the current round of budget discussions, they're talking about bringing it down 13%. Well, what the argument is, well, that will cost us 200,000 teachers. That's not true. It's not being spent on teachers at all in the first place. So you really have to get behind the numbers. As a businesswoman, I loved doing that in Washington. They do not like business people in Washington. They don't want someone that can read an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow, that does the research and understands where it's all coming from. And the indoctrination that's coming is coming out of Washington and being pushed down into the schools. So, you know, we don't need more Washington. We need our state legislatures, and I want to actually recognize Senator Greg Dolezal for introducing the school choice bill here in Georgia. We do need that because we are in a state that's the biggest battleground in the country, and we need to act while we have that opportunity. We will not always have that opportunity. In fact, when I was in the Senate in 2020, Republicans thought we would always have the Senate. Well, a few days later, no. And our last chance to get it back might be this coming year. But we're not talking partisanship here, but I want to tell you what happened in a state, a blue state like Illinois, the one I grew up on. I was educated in public schools, went to State University. Today, they just let the School Choice Act expire. It's the first state to do away with school choice. It's roughly $70 million program. 10,000 kids per year are going to lose scholarships to good performing schools, and they're going to sent back to factories of failure. And so these kids, the billionaire governor has let it expire while he has donated hundreds of millions of dollars to private schools. The boarding school, the East Coast boarding school he went to, he's okay going to private school. He doesn't want it for the kids that need it the most. So yes, we have problems at the federal level, but we can't take for granted the work that needs to be done at the state. And that's why I'm so, like, when I meet someone that runs for school board or state board of education or the state legislature, I spend a lot of my time working on local elections because I want people to know what's going on. We just had elections last Tuesday. About 10% of the state eligible voters voted in these elections. And a big problem we had is people weren't even running for the seats. In Fulton County that serves 50,000 students, there was no one on the opposing side of the ballot. There were no choices. Hall County canceled their elections because no one challenged the incumbents. So that's the challenge we're having here, and I commend those of you who have run, who will continue to think about running, and of course your leadership in inspiring people. And I want to say, I saw the media coverage on Moms for Liberty. What the media tries to do, you're having an impact, and you know because they're focused on it. They're trying to say that you're not winning races. You're putting people in races where there was no one. And that's what we have to do. We have to show up. We can't be afraid to lose. We have to stand for things that we believe in, even if it means costing us the race, because we can't go along to get along, because it's hurting our kids. And if kids could vote, they'd be treated very differently.
Gosh, thank you so much for that. So yeah, we've been just taken through the ringer this week on the school board races, which is just ridiculous because just 2-3 years ago, no one was running against any of those seats. And so it's our goal to have 13,000 school districts across the country. No seat should run unopposed. Even if it's a good school board member, it'll make them a better candidate and a better school board member to have some opposition. People need to run. You guys need to step up, encourage each other, support each other. If you're not the person, get your friend to do it who might be the person. We need to do our civic duty and serve in these positions. So thank you for that. I want to switch a little bit and talk about Greater Georgia. So thank you so much, sponsor of this evening, and in helping us out to put some of this stuff together. We were really grateful for that. But it seems like through Greater Georgia, you're working on voter mobilization, which is so important, something else we are working on, and that you're focusing on high school students, getting them engaged. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, if we sit here and say kids are our future, and I love what Alveda said, she's like, they're our future, but they're our now. They are now, and they're going to be our biggest group of voters. They're not now. They're undervoting their weight. What we've done is gone into schools and registered voters, talked to them about conservative values. We've talked to them just about American values and educating themselves on civics. We have some great civic leaders in this, and some leadership organization. Dr. Randall Trammell runs a great organization that helps develop civics education and knowledge. Like, we're supposed to learn about the Constitution one day a year. That doesn't even happen, and that's a kind of a federal law. But what we're doing is not just voter registration and voter mobilization, election integrity, but we're also doing candidate recruitment. We did a candidate recruitment drive this summer, got 100 local candidates to sign up. We put them through a 6-week boot camp, had all kinds of experts in different areas about campaign finance, how to qualify for elections, how to run your campaign. And we're going to continue to do that to make sure that in 24, not only do we have good candidates, but we're going to start to increase the knowledge that people have about who's on the ballot. Sometimes it's hard to know who's on the ballot. How do you find information? So we're going to continue to do that. And I also go to colleges and speak. I've had the Antifa college experience, but it's still so important to stand there and talk to people one-on-one, just personally, and connect with people. It's so hard to have a conversation these days that I think people appreciate when, even if you differ, that you are willing to be educated on the issues. You have your position, but you want to listen to theirs, and you have a conversation, and we need to do more of that. And I think kids in particular appreciate that because their alternative is TikTok. And today, half of kids under age 24 are pro-Hamas, and a lot of that's coming from TikTok. So it's really dangerous, and we think TikTok's bad. Wait till AI gets here. It's already very, very bad. And if we aren't careful, our kids, we're not going to have any control over what they're seeing because AI is going to be the new frontier.
Okay. We need to end on a happier note. On a happier note, please. That was rough. Okay, we have time, I think, for one more discussion here, and I just want to ask, what can the people in this room do? What can they do to take action, to get more involved, to improve the circumstances and situations? I mean, you just brought up a lot of issues and a lot of things we've talked about. So, words of advice to this room on how to get engaged.
Yeah, and I think, first of all, I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all are here, and God bless each and every one of you. It's a Monday night. We're approaching the holidays. You've turned up. One thing that you can do is commit to telling 5 people about this night and that you were here, and that why you were here, and what the issues that are near and dear to your heart, whether it's school choice, getting CRT and DEI and things out of the classroom, getting divisive concepts, getting the pro-trans agenda out of our young kids' schools, and to find a way to have those conversations in a way that is supports the betterment of the community, that has a good dialogue. And it's great that we have State Rep Hilton here along with Senator Dolezal, Clint Dixon. Thank you, Representative Dixon. I mean, these guys are so accessible. Get to know your state rep, your state senator, your county commissioner, your school. If you aren't going to run, at least get to know these folks, the county commissioners and so forth. Join something to see what it's like. Sign up and volunteer at Greater Georgia. Engage in something to get started, and start asking questions, and that'll lead you somewhere. Look, I got involved in politics about, my gosh, it was 2000, so now 13 years ago in Georgia. I became a U.S. Senator. I would have never expected that. I went to a dream game. I became an owner. You take that first step, you never know where it's going to lead. So I just encourage you to keep doing exactly what you guys are doing here tonight. So thank you for having me, and just God bless the work that you do. Because I watch it, I saw you all on TV, so when you asked if we could do a call and talk about getting involved in Georgia, I knew Georgia didn't have enough representation of Moms for Liberty. We have these great groups. We need more, and we need to support these women's efforts to grow this movement.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful for we're so grateful for you and your support and for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
That from you. Okay, up next, is Dr. Trammell here? Did anybody hear from him? What happened to Dr. Trammell? Okay. Traffic, yeah. Dr. King was stuck in traffic. She made it a little bit late, but maybe he is stuck in traffic. Okay, then up next, we are going to hear from Kate Hudson. I'm going to introduce her here briefly. We're going to just flip things around. If Dr. Trammell comes in, Angela, you let me know, and we'll put him in after Kate. Kate, I'm looking for your bio. You might have to introduce yourself. Nope, you don't. Okay, Kate Hudson is the founder of Education Veritas. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is educating, enlightening, and empowering parents and students with truth in education. Education Veritas deals with issues like bullying of students and parents, teachers and administrators inserting personal and political ideological beliefs and queer theory into the minds of children. She has a degree in journalism and English. She's on the advisory board of Turning Point USA. She has spoken in many great events. Through Education Veritas's Instagram account, she educates parents and students on schools. She also presented to the Georgia Senate Education Committee on the need for all students, whether students at public or private schools, should be protected from gender ideology and sexualized content within schools. Kate, do you want to come take the mic for a little bit?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Hudson, as you heard, and founder of Education Veritas, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. Thank you to Tina and Kelly for having me to discuss some important things going on within the private schools. So there's much focus on the public schools, but there's a lot going down in the privates that is a very similar agenda to the public schools, but parents are paying $30,000 to $40,000 for a progressive curriculum that is being executed at a high level of sophistication. So over 3 years ago, my efforts started in about the 20 seconds it took to read an email on a Friday afternoon that Monday morning, my son, along with other 5 to 10-year-olds, would be asked a series of identity questions in their new care program at his elite Christian school. And those questions were of, identity questions of race, religion, and the kicker was the chaplain was going to be asking the children to stand if they identified as a girl and stand if they identified as a boy. And with that, I pulled my son at the end of that year and was fortunate enough to get him into a school where they were not pushing progressive ideologies over truth. So I formed Education Veritas to be a wall of support and force of empowerment for parents and students alike. And through this, what we realized is the teachers that were, pushing all of this woke curriculum, they had been indoctrinated themselves through universities and through the NAIS, which is the National Association of Independent Schools. So all of this was coming down, and they were then pushing their political ideologies onto our kids. So for years, parents have felt very safe in their private schools, especially the Christian ones. There was transparency. Parents knew what they were paying for, and missions were stated, and boards were there to hold the school accountable to a certain level, standard, et cetera. But with cancel culture and bullying tactics, those voices were being silenced. The teachers, the administrators, students, parents, anyone that pushed back, they were getting all sorts of retribution. So the children in turn were being failed, exploited, and brainwashed. And these accreditation firms, the NAIS and the SAIS, which is the Southern Association of Independent Schools, these schools were beholden to these accreditation firms, and so their requirements, their doctrines, they were adhering to. So also within these private schools, Christian schools, there was now this weaponization of Christianity. So you had them saying, well, we're an inclusive Christian school. And if you read that or hear that, you know that that is 100% nothing to do with Christianity, that it was everything about a political agenda. And parents, through that language weaponization, were being masterfully manipulated. So you all here, of course, have heard the oppressed-oppressor narratives, critical race theory, Marxist ideologies, queer theory, all of this being a part of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So this big umbrella where the NEA and the teachers' unions were pushing this within the private schools, these accreditation firms, the NAIS, the SAIS, hiring firms like Carney Sando, have created somewhat of a cartel where they are pushing this progressive narrative into these private schools under the guise that, you know, this school is adhering to a mission, and it's nothing to see here. It's all good. So with these accreditation firms, they are pushing down activism, for example, as, you know, this is what we're doing here. This is where the power is. So the parading and the protesting for the latest oppressed groups, when these kids have zero idea of the history, the facts, or really the genesis of what they're fighting for or against. And, you know, it's very dangerous to be an activist when you don't really understand what both sides are about. So this entire agenda, people have wondered, you know, what is this? You know, what is the reasoning behind all this? What are they trying to do? And really, this is a dismantling of society and capitalism. It is about money and power, and the greatest power is achieved when a wedge is formed between parents and children. So these private school administrators, schools, the teachers, they are literally telling kids, we know better than your parents. Literally saying, your parents act out of fear. So this is how the real transformation and the power is achieved. School officials telling children, you can be whatever gender, pronoun, you know, you can have multiple sexual identities, you can be called different names, whatever, and we'll keep it from your parents. You know, boys can go into the girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, they can compete against girls in competitive sports and contact sports at that. So these boundaries are being taken down intentionally, and we're creating a society that is set up to fail, while our government and these affiliated organizations and companies profit off a weakened generation. So what is the answer? Where's the hope? And with Education Veritas, we have tried to be that wall, that support system for parents and students and those involved in education. So for us, it has been, you know, to please join in with us on our social media. Instagram is the biggest platform we use, kind of fortunately and unfortunately. It shows sort of the content of what's going on the best, but it is also masterfully censored. So you never know what you're going to see or not see. I'm so grateful for what all of you are doing, and really want to make sure that people don't lose sight of the fact that private school parents and children desperately need protection too. That these private schools are very adept at deploying these ideologies and indoctrinations, and they've done so with zero accountability. So many will say that private school parents have a choice and they can just leave. And it's just not that easy when every private school in this metro area is eaten up with this cancer. So the few schools that are not pushing this in the Atlanta and surrounding area are overrun. They have, you know, no space, and applications are, you know, filled. So do not forget also that those private schools take public tax dollars through both scholarship programs and the Georgia High School Sports Association. So yes, they're private institutions, but they should not be subsidized with public tax dollars if they're going to engage in these harmful practices. So this is why we are working to pass Senate Bill 88 this upcoming session. This bill will protect kids in public and private schools from being transitioned without mom and dad knowing, and teaching and pushing gender ideology and queer theory on kids without their parents' knowledge. So we have Senator Dolezal here tonight, who is fearlessly fighting to help us pass this bill to protect children in Georgia. SB 88 is in Senator Dolezal's Education Committee, and they will be voting on this bill in January. So please thank him for his support for this measure and his relentless effort to make Georgia's school choice a reality. So all kids deserve protection, and the bottom line of all this is look around the room and know you are not alone. It feels like a one-man soldier fighting sometimes when you're out there, but you have support and you have us at your back. So please email, connect with us on Instagram, and any questions or anything we can do to help, we're here. Thank you so much.
Well, hello, everybody. Don't fall asleep now. Well, let me introduce myself. So my name is Tia Bess, and I'm the National Director of Engagement with Moms for Liberty. So hey, y'all. Now that's my trademark because I am Southern. It is an honor and a privilege to be here in Georgia, the home state of my grandfather, so I definitely feel ties to this beautiful state. And I'm fed up. I'm just going to be quite honest. How many of you guys are fed up right now? Change doesn't happen until you get fed up. I'm fed up because the parents, let me take this mic off. There we go. Okay. So I'm fed up because the parents need to be heard. We, the parents, need to be heard. I'm fed up because nationwide, only 17% of black students in the 4th grade are reading on grade level. That's a problem. I'm fed up because here in the great state of Georgia, only 11% of black students are reading on grade level in the 4th grade. That's a problem. I'm also fed up because only 2% of black students are in advanced classes. Our kids deserve better. Where's the money going? Where's the support going? Where's the help going? I'm fed up. This is the United States of America, the land of opportunity, the greatest country on the face of the earth. And what's happening to our young people? In this country, anything is possible. You can start down here and go anywhere. The sky's the limit. You gotta have people to believe in you, to push your dreams, to care for you. Well, times is about to change now. Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change this world. And I know that. And the kids in these communities and failing schools, they need to know that too. They need to know that change is around the corner, that education is attainable for you. See, maybe you're like me, and I used to think, I'm just a mom. What can I do? I'm just a mom. I pick up my kids, I drop them off, take them to soccer practice. I'm not a politician. I don't even like politics. But then I started to think about it. Wait a minute. I have kids. My kids are my future. They're my legacy. I have to educate them. 3 years ago, I sat on my farm. I'm a farmer. And I sat on my farm and I thought, now wait, something doesn't make sense here. Why can't our kids read? Why can't our kids count change? The basic principles and things that we grew up with, our kids can't do it. Our kids are becoming smarter and smarter with technology and losing everything else. They need a calculator for everything, but not my son, and I'll explain why. See, I joined Moms for Liberty as a volunteer, and I had passion. But I saw something in my son that no one else did. I saw potential in him, despite of his developmental delays. See, raise your hand if you ever had somebody believe in you. When no one else believed in you, that one person was there to fight for you and to be your champion. Well, that was me. That was me as a mama bear. My son is speech and hearing delayed. And during COVID, he was still nonverbal. He had 50% hearing loss in both ears. And the doctors told me he'll never go to regular school. The teachers told me he'll never be able to button his pants and use the restroom on his own. Just give up. The doctors, the teachers, the neighbors, oh, he's just a boy, he'll never talk. They don't know the power of a mama bear. So my son, and I'm not going to tear up, I promise, my son wasn't given a fair chance because they wanted to keep him in ESC self-contained classes. And they told me that the only way that we can move your son out of these classes is if you mask train him. Now, for some people who have autism, mostly my son as well, he has sensory issues. Anything too tight, like a tag on the back of your shirt or something that's distracting, he won't focus in a learning environment. He wouldn't even wear goggles to go swimming. So what makes the school think that for 8 to 10 hours, my son could sit in a learning environment wearing a mask, a face shield, and sit behind plexiglass for 8 to 10 hours a day at 5 years old? Enough was enough. And that's why I'm fed up, because I knew that if my son had a chance in this world, I had to fight for him, and I had to be his voice, and I had to advocate. And when the rest of the world shut down and my son didn't receive occupational therapy and speech therapy, as a parent, I had to stand up. I had to provide those services at home. 3.5 years of ABA therapy, 40 hours a week, in home and at school. And that's what it takes to be one of those parents, is to keep on fighting. Now, here's the good part. Speaking up for my son came with a lot of arrows coming at me. I've been called a lot of things. I've been called a racist. Do I look racist to y'all? Okay. I've been called a bigot. I've been called a white supremacist. This doesn't rub off, I'm telling you. Anything that they could call me to distract me for standing up for my son. And for most people who don't understand the struggles of having a child with autism, you'll do everything you can for that child. Just to hear my son say, I love you, there's no amount of money I would have paid for that. And right now, my son is in the 3rd grade. He's not one of the kids who are not reading on grade level. He reads on the 5th grade level. Thank you. Thank you. My son is in gifted classes. My son has friends. He has a social interaction. He has all of those experiences like every other little boy and little girl has, because I had to fight for it. And that's what I encourage everyone in this room to do, is to get up, to stand up, to fight, to be involved in your child's education. Because if I didn't go to that school, I would have never known that my son was in slower classes, that they refused to move him up because I didn't speak up. And it's not until you speak up and you get fed up does change happen. And I started just speaking out at school board meetings, going to school board meetings and asking them, please, drop the masking mandate. My son reads lips. How can he go to an educational environment and learn to be better if he reads lips? You can't. And I would listen and I would see his speech regressing, and I would see how sad he would become because he didn't have any friends or no one to play with. And mental health right now is so important for our young people. And you have to ask yourself, what are you doing? And I had to ask myself, what am I doing? And I had to be brave, and I had to stand up against the internet bullies and the people in the streets. But that didn't matter because this mama loves her baby. Like many of you mama bears, you have to stand up and fight. You have to remember what it's like to be a child yourself and know what they need. And I knew that my son needed to have that chance like everyone else. And right now he's thriving and he loves school, and that's what a lot of our young people are fighting right now, is that they're losing their interest in education. Without education, you can't go anywhere. And that's what I wanted to instill in my son. And it's organizations like Moms for Liberty and other parental right organizations that are encouraging parents to stand up. And if I can stand up, you can stand up too. Because my son has dreams. He wants to be a doctor. And I believe in his dreams. And when that day comes, I know that he'll remember the fight that I had for him. And it's not just my child, it's other kids that I'm standing up for. So I really encourage everyone, look into Moms for Liberty, join our organization, tell 5 people. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids. If I didn't stand up for my son, he wouldn't be where he's at right now. He wouldn't have those dreams. He would still be nonverbal. He would still be stuck in the self-contained ESE classrooms with no hope. And you have to remember, we all need hope. Thank you very much.
Somebody turn this back on. Ah, thank you. Okay, we are now going to get into the last portion of our evening. We're going to have our representatives and senators come up to the stage as we are set changing. If anybody with muscles wants to help these ladies, that'd be wonderful. And then they're going to intro themselves, and we're going to have a couple questions, and then we're going to open it up to you all to ask questions. Oh my gosh, Julie, really? Go, Julie. Yeah, she can pick up everything. Julie does CrossFit. She can probably bench and squat more than anyone in this room, just so you know. That's why I have no problem with her. I've got a couple mics. Somebody here? Mic for you? Mic for you? Sorry. Do you have a mic? Mic, here. Mic. Okay. You've got 2 mics? Okay. That wasn't the most graceful transition, but hopefully you guys will work with this. Okay. Thank you guys. First of all, you know, you all give some kudos here for these guys on a Monday night coming out, and these are your representatives and senators that care about what you all want and need. And I'm just so impressed with all of them, for agreeing to be here, and as I've read up on you guys, for what bills you've put forward and gotten behind. And again, courage, that's the theme of the evening. You heard Tia's story of courage. We're gonna talk about the courage of the 4 of you and what you've been doing, what you're up to, and what you want to see this next legislative session. I will take one, Angela, because thank you so much. Okay, but first we're just going to go down the line, like a 2-minute intro on yourself. Tell us, we'll start with you, Mesha, please, if you want to kick it off. We'll just go right down the line.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Greater Georgia, and the other sponsors. I'm Representative Mesha Mainor. I represent Atlanta, District 56, and I have constituents here. Woo-woo! And I want to, you know, I recently just switched parties from Democrat to Republican, and a lot of people say, well, what do your constituents think? And as soon as I switched parties, my constituents started reaching out to me and said, you support our children, you support parental rights, you support keeping our community safe. We don't care what letter is next to your name, and that's representative of, I have people coming all the way from the west side tonight, and so just glad to be here and be a part of the discussion.
I'm numbers, there it is, all right. Hey, my name is Scott Hilton. I have the honor of representing areas of Peachtree Corners here in Gwinnett, Johns Creek, Alpharetta, and Roswell. I have the opportunity to serve you in the state of Georgia as Vice Chairman of the House Education Committee, so a pretty important committee down there. But I don't know if Tia's still, there's Tia. You're like my spirit animal. You were saying everything I wanted you. We have a child. His name is Chase. We named him wrong. We chase him all over the place. But he was blessed with Down syndrome. And there was a fire, I think, that was lit in 2020, 2021 amongst, and I've learned in politics, the scariest thing I've ever seen is a mama bear trying to protect her child. And because they've got the fire and the fierceness of something I've never seen before. And there was a movement that was started. And here's my message for you today. Never forget that movement. Never forget the people who locked our kids out of schools. Never forget the people who masked our children, who issued mandates of all different kinds. Because our kids are suffering now. Their life outcomes are worse because of those policies. And I feel with every year that's gone by since then that we've tended to forget. We've tended to lose that fierceness. We need to re-inspire ourselves to say, no, that was not right. That will not happen again. That will not happen in Georgia. And that's why I ran, and that's why I'm serving you. Yeah. Thank you for this group. As the senator said, and God bless her, she is doing incredible work through Greater Georgia. Tell friends. Get the word out. We need you. Because the left's got mobs of people trying to cancel us. We know you've got our back through prayer, and God's a mighty God. He's got us. And so I've used up probably 5 minutes. I'm going to pass it on. These are the real deal here. These are the guys, and I just want to praise them. In the thick of things, when things were real, they were there. They were passing hard legislation, getting good things done, protecting our students and our families. So these two guys, gentlemen, they deserve a ton of praise and respect from y'all. Good.
Good evening. Grateful to be here for y'all today, and thank you for having me. I'm State Senator Clint Dixon. I represent the 45th Senate District. This is my home county we're sitting in. I grew up about 5 miles from here. I represent Gwinnett and Barrow County. Going to go a little different. I got to give a shout out to one of your chapter presidents, Meg Rutnick, and her husband, Michael. Also got Steve Gaspers here in the audience. He's running for our school board here locally. And in my first term, I was one of the governor's floor leaders and had the honor of carrying Unmasked Georgia Students Act. Thank you. Thank you. Also carried the Parents' Bill of Rights on behalf of the governor as well during that time. But in that, we also, during redistricting, we changed the school board here in Gwinnett that flipped, and politics seeped in on the school board here in Gwinnett. And they took the focus off the children and focused on politics, partisan politics, unfortunately, which sounds like you face that as well. And grateful for Steve. We got the partisanship taken off because we do lean, by the numbers, we lean towards Democrats here in Gwinnett now. But grateful for Steve stepping up and running for the school board. He's been successful. He's got my full support. But grateful to be here with y'all today. Thank you so much.
It's amazing. Clint actually chairs the Education Committee in the Senate and has done phenomenal work in the process. My name is Greg Dolezal. I have the opportunity to represent most of Forsyth County in the state Senate. Got elected in 2018. In 2019, my freshman year, I brought the first ever school choice bill to the floor of the Georgia State Senate, where it failed in spectacular fashion. But it introduced me to this fight, and it's a fight that I've been in ever since. My wife and I have 4 kids, 11 and under, so we are very much in the zone of having to have active conversations. Yesterday's conversation with my daughter was, Daddy, why can we not say Christmas in my school, but we can say why can we not say Merry Christmas, but we can say Happy Diwali? I said, tell me more about that. We got into a whole conversation. Last week's conversation was about sources of strength and some of the curriculum that she's learning there. Early in the year, the conversation was around, I had to talk to her. She's my oldest. She's in the 6th grade. I had to talk to her about what to do if a teacher ever asked her what her preferred pronoun was, because that was happening in Forsyth County schools. And if the teacher ever told her not to talk about something that happened at school with mommy and daddy, that she needed to come and talk to us. And she's kind of enamored with the whole Senate thing. If you were to meet me, I would tell you to call me Greg, and then I only make my kids call me Senator. It makes it fun when you arrive back home after a long day at work and the kids run towards you and they hug you and say, hi, Senator, welcome home. So she said to me, relative to this whole teachers telling them not to talk to their kids or not to talk to us about things, she said, well, will my daddy get them in trouble? I said, yeah, your daddy's going to get him in trouble. So thank you for having us tonight. Phenomenal intro to this conversation, and look forward to chatting a little more.
Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. This is going to be a great conversation, I can already tell. So I do want to talk a little about your parental bill of rights that passed. as we, people submitted some comments and questions when they registered, and there were several comments about they would like to see the bill strengthened, maybe with some future legislation. So is that something you're looking at or considering? Is anybody else considering adding anything to it? Has there been discussions about that?
Yeah, the part of the bill that needs to be strengthened is it's the substance, I'm losing my
Right
train
of
thought.
action, maybe?
No, not the
Not
right of action. No, it's the, you got your primary material that comes in. Now that can all be
Oh, yeah, the second.
supplemental. Thank you very much. Yeah, the supplemental material that's being put in the bill, it didn't include that. It did include the primary, and which is very important. It went a long ways. It also gives the parents the first 2 weeks of every 9-week semester to review that material, and also gives them the opportunity to opt out of sex ed, also videograph and photograph. So it went a long ways, but it could be strengthened, and would love to see that done, yes.
It's amazing. Thank you. Okay. Is there anything coming up in the next legislative session that you guys have already put forward? Let's just go down the line that you want to speak about and get some support for in this room, et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to start?
You know what I would really like to see that I'm working on is, and I have not discussed this with the party, but I would really like to see, we are celebrating every single religion and faith in the school system except Christianity. I would really like to see us kids be able to bring their Bible to school if they choose to, be able to pray if they choose to. I'm not saying that it would be led by the school system, but we need to create an opportunity for kids to be able to go to whatever their faith is. If it's Diwali, if it's Christianity, if it's Islam, we're letting every other religion be practiced except Christianity. And the American motto is, "In God we trust." So why aren't we trusting God at the moment?
I love that. I wonder what type of legislation would help that, because legally children are allowed to pray in school and bring their Bible to school. But I think the environment right now in public school is children feel like, I think you said your child feels like they can't even say Christmas. They can't even say Christmas. I remember when I served on a PTO, we put up a bulletin board, and the background was a shape of a Christmas tree, and we got our hands slapped. And that was like some of the things that started showing up, and this was 15 years ago. They said we had to take it down. It was too Christian. And so when did Christianity get expelled from school, and what kind of legislation really could help, make it a more open environment for children? If anybody has any ideas, we'd love to open that up.
I'm going to jump into the bill that I'm kind of been noodling around in terms of education. It's a takeoff of one that you introduced. Adam Murphy is a constituent of mine. If you've seen him, he does the CBS 46 restaurant reviews, right? And you see the gross restaurant, and you're like, that's a failing. I would never go in and eat there. Well, the unfortunate reality is we are sending thousands of kids to failing schools, and a lot of parents don't even know about it. And so Representative Mainor here had a great bill last year that, hey, you get a school report card, A through F, and we send that out to the parents. I'd love to see us take it even a step further. And, the restaurant, you walk in, you can see it right there on the door, F, nah, I'm not going there. I mean, think about the how we could ignite the school choice movement when you've got thousands of parents walking into the school looking at, oh gosh, I didn't know I had an F right there. I mean, you'd have people clamoring for Senate Bill 233 and all kinds of other options to escape their failing school. And so I think we need a level of transparency and school rankings like we've never had before. Email it to the parents, put it on the thing, let people know A through F, where does your school stand? And then, like I said, that'll light up parent engagement like you've never seen before and get them involved on their school boards and locally.
Sunlight is always the best disinfectant. I think parents have the knowledge. I mean, you heard Tia speak and say she knew what they were doing to her son because she showed up, because she asked the questions. A lot of times parents don't know, so I love that. So is that when I said, is there legislation you're thinking about proposing or have proposed?
Like I said, noodling it around. There's a bill already out there that I think we'll kind of play around with. So it's something I'm passionate about. We'll be looking at this upcoming session.
And I love that you said you hadn't brought it to the party yet. You heard it first here before the party. So yeah, I love that. I love that you're our people. Okay. What you got going on?
Yeah, I'd say,
I hear you got some fun things going on in school safety.
Yeah, two of our primary focuses I think you'll see next year, school safety, number one, and then literacy. And the literacy front, I'm on the literacy council that was formed this past year in Georgia. Two things that are a bit different about our literacy push. You've seen it in some other states that focus heavily on K through 3, which we will do. But we're also going to look at literacy in the adulthood, create state funding, and get adults back in the classroom that aren't literate, that are having reading proficiency issues, get them back in the classroom, get them reading as they should be so they can compete in the job market. Because many of you probably know, and you've heard probably 1,000 times, we just reached a milestone, 10 years for the #1 state to do business. And the only way that we'll continue to do that is making sure that our young adults and our adults are proficient in reading, because it's the foundation of education. And one alarming number, or two things that really struck me last year as we started having hearings on literacy. One was that teachers in our university system are not being taught phonics nor the science of reading anymore, which has become part of the issues of, at the end of 3rd grade, only 38% statewide of all students are reading proficiently at 3rd grade, which was shocking to me last year. So one of the big pushes with Literacy Council, another big push will be making sure that teachers are at the university system are taught phonics to teach kids, and also the science of reading, and then also have supplemental classroom for the folks that are already teachers, and make sure that they're taught that as well. As far as school safety, our great Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is leading an initiative that'll be carried by Senator Max Burns, which has to do with school safety. It's got two parts to it. In Gwinnett, we don't have that issue. We've got our own school system. But in the neighboring county, more rural parts of Georgia, neighboring county, Barrow County that I represent, they're unable to have 2 SRO officers in the school to make sure students are safe. Luckily, Judge Smith, the sheriff over there, he kind of picks up the weight and makes sure that they've got officers in the schools, but it's usually just one. So there's a tranche of money. It's a grant program. There's funding already there in the state budget, which would allow any school system to apply for the SRO officers and have 2 in each school. And the other part of it, which you might have seen in the news with the liberal news media, I know I'm not supposed to get political, but the only thing in the press conference they picked up on was that our lieutenant governor was going to pay teachers to be armed. But that's not the case. Well, I mean, kind of not the case. But a few years ago, there was a bill passed where if a school system decided that teachers could carry firearms, they could. And there's 10 systems that currently carry, or are allowed to carry, teachers are allowed to carry. The bill will also have, if teachers decide to carry, they would have to get post-certified training in firearms and keep that current every year. And if they do so, they get a $10,000 stipend on top of their salary. So that's the 2 parts of the bill.
How much grief are you getting for that?
Quite a bit.
We have the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Coach Aaron Feist Guardian Program in Florida. Are you familiar? You should be familiar. Yeah. And I was serving on the school board when that passed, and school districts had to decide if they were going to adopt it. And that was my first experience with Moms Demand Action. And literally 1,000 protesters in red shirts coming and laying on the ground with pouring fake ketchup blood and saying I was going to kill them. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I wish that all that doesn't happen to you as you move through this process. How about you, sir? What you got coming up on the radar?
Well, first and foremost, this literacy thing's interesting to me. See the literacy rates dropping among 3rd graders, and today's 3rd graders were COVID's masked kids. And Scott talked about, if you guys see now, they're saying, hey, we should have grace for the decisions that it was on the news last week. Can't we just have some grace for the people that locked down the kids and kept them out of school and masked them? And there's no grace. No. There's accountability. And we knew the science at the time. We know the science now. At the start of last year, the start of 2022, there were still kids in public schools in Michigan that were locked in their homes and could not attend school in person. And what we did to this generation, of which my kids are members of, is unforgivable. And we have to tell the truth about what happened so we ensure that it never happens again. First and foremost, I want to see Senate Bill 233 get passed out of the House this year. It's the school choice bill. That will significantly move the needle in empowering parents to make the best education decisions for their children. And as you know, as parents, you are the best equipped and in the best position to do that. I have a bill, I believe it's Senate Bill 154, that is very simple. It removes the obscenity exclusion for school libraries.
So important, so important. Thank you so much for that one.
I see a friend from the AJC's in the back of the room, and the AJC tells the story that, oh, you just want to lock librarians in jail. No, I just don't want my kids given pornography in school. And we're going to work on the bill. We're going to work on the bill such that there's a curing option, and that there are some pathways for the schools to make it right. But we absolutely do not believe that our kids should have access to something in school that they would not have access to at the 7-Eleven down the street. And that's the intent of that bill. Lastly, this came about last year. I was reading the news. North Carolina had to outlaw. How many of y'all know what a diversity statement is in the hiring process? I didn't know what it was. Didn't know there was such a thing. But what I found is that professors, so chemistry professors, right? They would be asked when you go to apply to be a chemistry professor at UGA, all right, give me your CV, give me your credentials, let me know what your PhD was in, give me 2 references. And then what was on the UGA website before Sonny fixed it was a 1-page statement of your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, including evidentiary examples as other documents, number 1. So what we were seeing at Georgia Tech and UGA in particular was this filtering process for the professors to ensure that they prescribed to kind of DEI Inc., right? And so I have a bill that's in the Senate. And by the way, Chancellor Perdue removed this from our university systems, but I want to enshrine it in law so we don't need to rely on a chancellor to do it. And what we do is we just get rid of all political litmus tests in the hiring process. And frankly, I think that should apply to the admissions processes as well, so that we're not seeing kids filtered out based on political ideology. So those would be a couple different things that I want to see happen this next session.
So many great bills. So real quick, just tell these are the people in the room that can help. What can these people do to help you all get these bills across the finish line? Because it's such a lengthy process. We're learning in other states where our chapters are growing that it helps when they come and speak at committee, during committee week and during committee hearings, or when, all these things, like you guys need support to get these things across the finish line, most likely, especially with school choice not making it across the finish line last time. Like, what can the people in this room do? Anybody can take it.
I can't pass anything if I'm not there. And so that means we need to get reelected now.
Step one.
Step one. And I'm looking at me and my friend here, Mesha. Both of us are in swing-type districts where it's all hands on deck. We need everybody. We are going to have a challenger, no questions asked. And so it's kind of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What do we need? Money. More money. Because they're going to be well-funded from states all across America, California, New York, and Illinois primarily, and ours is going to come from friends and family that are in this room. So we need money, we need door knockers, and if you like to write postcards, we sent about 7,000 postcards last year, so we need that. Because right now in the House, our margin is about 11, 12, I think is the number, and in one election that can be gone, and everything we're talking about here stops. And so we need to continue to fight like heck, because the next election is the most important one. So do that. When a bill is in front of a committee, please pay attention and come down there. It always drives me nuts on the education committee when we have a bill that's somewhat controversial, and the other side's lined up 10 people deep to talk against the bill, and I'm looking at one of y'all sitting there, looking at a smile on your face, but it's only one. We need an army out there to come down to the Capitol. It's not hard. I'll get you parking. We'll figure it out, and come testify on our behalf.
Yeah, and I'd also like to echo what Senator Loeffler said, there's nothing greater that you can do is when you leave this event, tell 5 folks that you know what happened here tonight, what's going on. Educating folks is the biggest part of this, not relying on the news. You get part of the story there. It happens to me all the time across all newscasts. But go home, tell 5 people about it. When you're out at dinner with them, face-to-face is better than on the phone, but if it's on the phone or in a text, do that. Just spread the word about this. Also, y'all are sitting just outside of my district, and I've got a lot of my fighters here. I see Holly Terry over there as well, and they've been down there with me when we had the Unmasked Georgia Students Act and the Parents' Bill of Rights. Meg was down there speaking on behalf. Her husband was there. Y'all are all down there. Steve was down there. Our great chairman here, Sammy Baker of the Gwinnett County Republican Party. Y'all tell I'm at home here. But all these folks, I can text one of them, and they all show up down there fighting for me. So that's the biggest thing you can do. Get to know your legislator, whether it's your senator, your House member. get their phone number, reach out to them, say, look, if you've got this issue on education, I'm concerned about it, let me know. I'll come down there, I don't care what time of day it is. And I promise you they will, because the left, unfortunately, I know I'm not supposed to get political, but I can't help myself, because I've been crucified in education committee meetings. But they're very good at it, and we need to get better at it, and that's the second thing I would say.
I would add to that. By the way, as it comes to the money thing, and I joked with her earlier about this. Earlier in the year, I made my first ever donation in my lifetime that was processed through Act Blue, which, by the way, is like the Democrat fundraising machine. And I'm like, all right, this is going to come back to haunt me because it's all public information. Somebody's going to talk about the fact that I ran for Democrat, but I'm happy to say that that donation was to Mesha Mainor, who's now a Republican. So I have cover. I would add one angle to this, if I could tell you a quick story. I sponsored a bill last year that assured that the accreditation process for public schools focused on two things and two things only: educational achievement and financial solvency of the system, because we saw the accreditation agencies going into all sorts of things that had nothing to do with those two things, and that was a story that I got from my local school system. I saw Forsyth County forced to implement certain programs because the accreditation was threatened and it was looming over them, and accreditation is tied to the Hope Scholarship, so you can imagine the parents in Forsyth County thinking their kids are going to lose hope. So Forsyth County fell right in line and did what this organization called Cognia told them to do that had nothing to do with reading and writing, right? That came from parents in my district informing me of that. So I would say keep us informed of the things that you're seeing in your districts and the stories that you're hearing from your kids, because without that, we're in a lot of ways flying blind. But you guys have real world insights. And so if you have any great ideas, just call Clint, because he's the chairman of the education committee, and he'll figure it out.
I would probably just say ask questions. So a lot of times you're hearing things and you're assuming that what you're hearing is true, but ask questions, because most likely what you're hearing is, I think we heard this already, is maybe just a half truth, right? And a lot of times as politicians, we may not even have enough time to explain everything. So I do want to just be clear that when we're saying transgender, we're saying that parents have the right to decide what is best for their child, right? I think everybody up here is clear on be who you want to be, right? But let's let a parent have the decision on what they want their child to be exposed to. So don't let media tell you that people that are fighting for parent rights are fighting against human rights or personal rights. So just, I want to be clear about that.
Thank you so much. That's what Moms for Liberty's mission is to help parents unify, educate, and empower to defend parental rights at all levels of government. All the other garbage you're hearing in the news about us, they're lies. They're just flat out lies most of the time. So thank you for clarifying what the movement is about, not just our organization, but it's a movement. There's all kinds of parental rights organizations right now around the country that are all pushing in this direction, because the one thing that we understand very clearly is that once you lose the right to direct the upbringing of your child, you're done. Your family's done. Our society's done, our country is done. This is the final line for all of us. So thank you so much for clarifying that. Just quickly, I just want everyone to be on the record here. Do you support the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children? Just a yes or a no down the line.
Yes.
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 Can I say hell yes? Or
Yeah. Only if you're going to put money in my swear jar. Sorry.
if you put money in my campaign jar.
You know,
Tiffany is the foul-mouthed one of the two of us. She's not really that foul-mouthed, but she does like to say small cuss words, so we have a swear jar just for her.
You know what? One thing that's really interesting is what's going on in California as far as parental rights and how we don't want that to come to Georgia. I don't know if you guys have talked about that or if people even know what the far left is doing in California as far as
We like to
parent
say
rights.
that California is not Las Vegas. What happens in California does not stay in California. It tends to spread throughout the United States. It's like that is the template. They start there, and then other states start adopting, and it is bad of what's happening in California.
You raise a good point. We talked about the bills that we've passed. Y'all should see the bills that we've stopped or blocked. You would be we would never lose an election if people saw the stuff that we're blocking, and we are literally one election away from that. So, that's why we got to fight like tooth and nail. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time, Angela, you gave me a 4-minute warning a few minutes ago, so I think it's time to open it up to your questions. Julie, where are you? Do you have the mic? There's a mic up here on the podium. We're going to take audience questions now. Some ground rules. It seems, hey, one thing, we've done, I don't know, 10 of these around the country, and at every single one, we have had at least 20 protesters, sometimes 100 or 2. There are no protesters here. What is going on in Georgia that we have no protesters? You guys must be so well loved. They're stuck in traffic. There's nobody even in the back of the room because we're open to the public. Like in Maryland, they were all in the back of the room with masks and rainbow everything. They were pretty polite. But I
do got to give a shout out to the great Lawrenceville Police Department that's protecting us outside.
Yes,
so we don't know what's
sure.
going on out there.
Yeah.
We definitely got to thank them.
We are very grateful for them. Anyway, that all was prefaced to say, please keep your questions to be professional and considerate. You can ask hard questions. All these people on the stage have agreed to answer hard questions, so you don't have to agree with them and where they stand and what they believe to ask a question, but just please don't use profanity or you have to put money in his, you have to donate to his campaign. I guess we'll start with you, Julie. Go for it.
Hold the mic, okay. My question's actually for you, so you're going to need a mic. But I had spoken with you earlier about SB 154 and library situation, and I understand that the exclusion or SB 154 is to remove, what is it, from obscenity exemption, but it only applies to school libraries, and I was wondering if that would be extended to public libraries as well. Not to remove or ban any books. I'm just talking about proper curation of books. If there is a way that we could kind of add that language to the bill.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know what the future of that bill is relative to any changes that will be made, and as you've heard it referred to as 50 times, the sausage making process, right? I think that ultimately there's raised awareness, and ultimately what we want to do is in the purchasing process of these books to have an eye towards, does this pass the Miller test or not, right? The Miller test is a Supreme Court case that define what obscenity is. And we have these battles being fought in schools all over the state around what's appropriate and what's not. But the reality is there's this covering for schools that essentially holds them harmless from that.
Right.
And so I don't think that that's the right public policy. And that's the focus of the bill. As the bill may or may not be tweaked, that is to be determined for sure.
Okay. I look forward to seeing more on that. Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to ask a question, but it's rhetorical because I don't require an answer. 95% of the people I ask this question don't realize this, and sometimes it's educators and legislators. In 1952, this is for parents as well, the Supreme Court ruled that release time religious instruction is legal to release public school students during school hours to receive biblical instruction. How many knew that out here? I don't know how many of you knew that. Matthew Gambrill, one of your associates or one of your constituents up in Cartersville, is going to be introducing legislation, not this session, but next, to make sure that the federal law is also endorsed on the state level, and I hope you can get behind that. I'm at a table over here. I'm a volunteer. I'm an activist. We're doing this in 325 schools today, serving 35,000 students. They're hearing the gospel every day. They're studying the Bible every day. Condition is that to be released during school hours. It has to be off school premise, privately funded, parent permission. And it is a phenomenal program. First is going to start up in Cartersville in January, and Danae Gamble is the director of that. So I'd like to have, if you would, please, before you leave, come over to the table, and I'll be here, and I'd like to talk with you further. And for those who are running for school board, it's a great platform to run on. So come and see me. Thank you.
I'll give a brief background, and I ran for office. Thank you for your support, Mr. Dixon. I ran for judge in Gwinnett County. I'm an attorney here. I have a special needs child, and I know we have a special needs scholarship. And I actually spoke at the school board about this, that the teachers are lacking training for those that are nonverbal kids. They need computer to communicate with. And a lot of times when parents have issues, the severity of the child is what determines their amount of money they get from the special needs scholarship. But it's not enough for children that are severe with the conditions that they have. There are schools that we have to pay out of pocket, sometimes 40 grand, 20 grand, and if you're not rich, your child is stuck in the school system. Is there any chance of that being reformed? Because right now I'm battling with the school system. I spoke at the last school board meeting and they all looked at me like two heads, like what is she talking about? We don't even know about this problem. So I'm really passionate about it. I actually was protesting with a few people here when they shut down the schools about my child. Hey, Holly. So I mean, I'm just curious if that's ever crossed your mind to consider maybe expanding or modifying or revamping, I don't know what the words is, for the special needs scholarship to cover students like that.
I'll just say, I mean, there's been a number of efforts over the year. You guys may more of the recent. The SB 10 is the program to sort of expand. I mean, it's been successful. People like it, but it needs to be, like anything, improved, expanded, and it's met with some of the same school choice resistance that we've experienced down there at the Capitol. You know, as a parent of a child with special needs, I've been in and around this community for a while now, and there's a lot that we need to get done, and talk about kind of legislation I'm noodling. I think we need we've done the Parents' Bill of Rights, now we need a Special Needs Bill of Rights, because the way we're treating a lot of these folks in Georgia is not right, and there's resources out there, they just don't have access to it, and so that's some legislation that I'm looking at to kind of clean all that up. So.
And I appreciate you doing that, because there's a lot of discrimination in our schools. My son, until I spoke up, he was in one classroom. There's a bathroom there. He was not allowed to leave that classroom the entire day. And when I fought for him to be integrated into at least one classroom, they touted that, you know, your son is the only one getting this special treatment. I'm like, well, that's against the law for all of the special needs kids to be quarantined in this classroom like that. So if you have a bill like that, I would love for that to happen.
I mean, there's nothing more intimidating than going to an IEP meeting and it's you and your wife, and then like there's 15 administrators around you kind of threatening you. So yeah, we need to fix that big time.
I would even just say that I'm a physical therapist, and so I've worked at Children's Hospital before and definitely understand the needs that parents have. The law, you know, if you take away a special needs scholarship, if you take away a parent needs scholarship, the law says that we must provide an adequate education. And so with that being said, technically it doesn't matter how much the equipment costs. You are already mandated to get that. And so let your voice be heard. If you feel like it's not being heard, then we have access to your school board of commissioners. So I have a town hall tomorrow, and I have a parent with a special need, Taryn Bell, who's going to be talking about how we have fought for her child that is severely deaf, and just the problems that she has gone through. But you have a voice, you have a right to education, and adequate education already. The law says that.
What keeps me up at night is you're an attorney, I'm married to an attorney. I worry about the single mom, English as a second language, 2 jobs, who doesn't know where the resources are to advocate properly for their child, and we've got to fix that.
I'd like to say, I mean, you've got my cell phone number. Thank you for putting yourself out there and running for office, by the way, here in Gwinnett. But yeah, please reach out to me. I'll support Representative Hilton. I mean, it's horrifying to me to think, you know, you've got your child that's only confined to one room a day. I mean, we've got to do something about that. That's inhumane to me. And you know, a big part of a child's education is you know, reading, arithmetic, but socialization with other children is a massive part of being successful in life. So yeah, please reach out to me.
I'll follow said. Just a lot of people here know my son Brady, and he's special needs. We're very passionate about him and his needs and what he needs to succeed. I've met Elaine and her family. I think we should get something specifically here in Gwinnett, a task force of parents, elected officials, something that's specifically for the special needs. That's not what I came up to talk about, but I heard Elaine talk about that, and I'm very passionate as well. Senator Dixon, I'll throw you a softball because I know you very well, and I like you a lot. But before I knew you, I didn't know you had a passion for education, and maybe you didn't back then and you do now. Being the chair of the Education Committee in the Senate, what has given you that passion, and what's seen you continue through with that passion through today? And then for Senator Dolezal, my question for you is why did the bill fail last year, and what can we do to get it through this year?
I'd like to say, I'd like to give a shout out to Brady, your son. He is my biggest fan. For education, I ran on putting families first. I'm not an educator by trade, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express one time. So. But no, it was thrust upon me. My first year in office, you stood right beside me along with your wife when we were hit in the face, like I said earlier, with politics flooding in on our school board. The focus went away from the children and focused on partisan politics. We made a change there, changed the school board to nonpartisan, and that's really what ignited me into the education realm there. So I'm fairly new to it, but it's my #1 legislative priority, and I'm very passionate about it.
On Senate Bill 233, I rewind to my freshman year where I told you the bill failed gloriously on the floor. That year, the pro tem voted against it, the majority leader voted against it. Some voted against it and some walked. I forget the mix. But a lot of powerful Republicans voted against that bill, and that was 2019. And then 2020 happened. And if you look at the polling data, call it pre-2020 versus post-2020 on this issue, it moved the needle significantly. In Georgia, every demographic supports school choice except white Democrats. And it's like a massive divergence, right? It's like 73% of African-American Democrats support school choice, but 38% of white Democrats support it. I'm not sure why I threw that in there, but I'm trying to make this connecting point that the winds have changed on this issue. So I got 25 votes my freshman year on my bill. It was a little bit of a different bill. We need 29 to pass in the Senate. This year, every Republican voted for it in the Senate, and it passed through literally without a single no vote. And this is, again, a similar bill that had failed a few years before. In the House, we came 5 votes short. We had Mesha was the only Democrat that voted for it, and there were 16 Republicans who voted against it. The governor's come out and said this is a priority for next year. The speaker has come out and said this is a priority for next year. The lieutenant governor has come out and said this is a priority for next year. So and then there's a whole group of people that have been making phone calls and talking to the 16 no votes, and I'm very confident that we will see this bill pass based on those conversations and based on the amount of energy that we're receiving really from all of the heavy hitters, if you will, at the Capitol.
Okay, awesome.
If I may, sorry to put you on the spot, why do so many Democrats vote against school choice? I mean, I hate to have you answer for all Democrats since you're not one anymore, but it's perplexing to me because it's education is the true equalizer. They are always championing equality, equity, all of these words that are derivatives. Can you explain why?
It's the teachers union. And so I will honestly say that as a former Democrat, the teachers union, they're not technically a union, but the teachers union, they will send out a video multiple times a week telling the Democrats, don't vote for school choice. Since I started voting for school choice with the special needs scholarship bill about 2 weeks ago, literally several times a week, her name is Vidalia Turner, she will send out and I'm doing that for the AJC, but she will send out a video that says, she'll send out a video that says we need to get that girl out of office that keeps voting for school choice. So the only reason they are voting for it is because of the teachers union. And I also want to say in a meeting, we got some national data that said just about 90% of Georgia Democrat voters support school choice. That was what the data said. And do you know what they said in the meeting? Well, what are we going to call it then? Let's call it something different. As if parents don't know what school choice is, however you call it. So to answer your question, they're intentionally not listening to you, and they're intentionally saying we're going to vote the way the teachers' unions want us to vote. And it's not the teachers, because the teachers call me and say, I have a child with special need. I have a child that's in a failing school. So it's not the teachers, it's the bureaucracy of the teachers' union.
The teachers' unions nationally, locally, all across the country, they have a strong hold on public education for decades. I hope everyone understands that. The attacks that Moms for Liberty and the Parents' Rights Movement are under, and legislators that vote for school choice are under, come straight from the teachers' union. They have billions of dollars, billions of dollars. Moms for Liberty doesn't have billions of dollars. I promise you. We are a grassroots. We started $500 in my back bedroom in a box of t-shirts. It is so hard to fight billions of dollars. And what I've heard from you is now they're coming after you. They're making videos about you specifically. Why is she voting for school choice?
That was when I was a Democrat.
That's when you were a Democrat. I can't imagine what they're doing to you now. I mean, let it go on the record. Teachers unions, not teachers. Some of my best friends are teachers. Teachers unions are bad organizations for education, for children, and for the future of this country, period. Next question.
So I am Waukesha Howe. This is my first time up here being with y'all. Me and my friend is a fierce advocate in Atlanta. And so my question is real basic. How can we work together? We are constantly flooded with Democratic stuff in our schools, in our communities. If we really want to talk about choice, bring the choices to the community. Let it be somebody else. We're tired of what we're seeing in our city. I want to be very honest about that. And I want to know, how can we work together for the greater good of not only children, but families in the state of Georgia, period?
I would just say that there is power in numbers, and you have an organization called Moms for Liberty that has a lot more resources than the two of you, even though the two of you are major. And so they are looking for chapters to open, and why not do a Moms for Liberty in Atlanta? Yeah. I will help support it. I know that there's a challenge with wording, verbiage, marketing. You know, in the urban community, we run into those challenges, but maybe start with figuring out what are some best practices from an organizing standpoint. I would get their numbers.
You have to become a community organizer. I mean, that is your new calling if you're not already doing that. We are happy to support you in any way. If you want to be an official chapter, fabulous. If you want to support a chapter, if you're already in a county that has a chapter, join it. Because you want to be a subgroup, great. You want to be your own Susie's chapter of parents' rights, we will support you. We have resources, we have tools, we have candidate training for running for school board, we have toolkits we put together. When we ran for school board in 2016, there was nothing. You could Google how to run for school board and there was nothing out there. You had to just figure it out. What did a school board member do? No one knew. I Googled it when I wanted to run. It wasn't out there. We've brought all of that together because it's important that people like you get involved, stay informed, and run. So.
And I did run. I ran in 2021.
Thank you.
So Kelly, to your point,
Yes.
that race that was unopposed, I did run in that race because I was tired of what I was seeing from our board members, from our community members. It's the same old politics. And we're over it. We're tired. We want to live in a thriving, healthy community.
Of course you do. Of course you do. What mom doesn't? What
Right.
families don't? Can you connect with Tia? She is our national engagement director. Get her cell phone number. Let's get you plugged in the best way we can.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
That's in case you say a bad word.
Okay. I'll try not to do that. So my name is Gus Raymond, and it's been great listening to a lot of discussion on public and private education. But I was wondering, what are y'all doing to encourage home education and give more power to churches to have homeschool groups and to allow there to be a much stronger homeschool infrastructure throughout the state? Is there anything that y'all are doing, or are y'all mainly focused on the public education? So yeah, that's sort of my question.
So my favorite tweet or X or whatever verb we're using Is it Randy Weingarten who's the, she goes,
Who's the
why is,
devil?
she like questioned, why is homeschooling on the rise? Teacher unions, yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, because of you, you know, so yes, it is on the rise because of a lot of the atrocities that we've talked about. You know, it's an interesting dynamic, right? You ask us could we do? A lot of the homeschool community says, nothing, stay away from us. You know, let us, you know, that's the beauty of it. I know on Senator Dolezal's 233, we had to put in provisions that said, like, homeschool community, this is in by no means us telling, you know, so I would almost put the question back and say, I don't know if we want to do anything. The beauty of homeschool is you can do it the way you, the parent, think it ought to be run best, so.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Did we pass that piece a few years ago where if you homeschooled, your child could still go and play sports?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're tweaking little things that the homeschool community is asking for.
I can talk loud. Yeah, and I would love, and I know your bill changed quite a bit once it got to the House from when it left the Senate, but would love to see the dollars, the $6,000 per child follow, even if you're choosing to you know, homeschool your child, have that child, you know, have that $6,000 put in that account, follow the child, and it may still be that way. It still is, okay.
All right, thank you all.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna hold it. One of my big passions is medical freedom, and I didn't know if there's any conversation about vaccination mandates. I know the CDC obviously put through the COVID vaccine on the childhood schedule. I didn't know if there was any conversation about maybe helping parents, again, have some rights around that before we send our kids to school.
We passed, actually authored Senate Bill 1 this year, which removed the sunset on the COVID vaccine mandate. That basically the language of that says the government cannot discriminate against you based on your COVID-19 vaccination status, which captures schools. So if you remember back in the day, there was some talk maybe the CDC would have mandates around that. We have preempted that at the state level, and this year it wasn't the first thing we did as the Senate, but it was the first bill that was introduced and was a priority of ours. We ended the sunset, so that's law now in perpetuity in the state of Georgia.
It's wonderful, and I love that about COVID vaccine. Any hope of any of the other vaccines not being a mandate?
There's always conversations around that. I'm not sure that there's an active bill that's floating around out there. I'm not on the HHS committee anymore, so I don't know that, but I do know that.
Audience participation, I love it.
It's a town hall.
Oh, hey, I'm Sandy Marcus, and I'm the director of the Georgia Coalition for Vaccine Choice. And in our wonderful state, we have religious and medical exemptions for that is by law. Your child can attend school whether they've had one vaccine, 10 vaccines, or no vaccines. It really doesn't matter. You just have to fill out the proper forms to get a religious exemption in our state. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is why we're at these meetings. Thank you.
There you go.
I'm going to cut you some slack from the questions, but as a homeschool mom, I want to thank you all for the Dexter-Mosley Act. And I don't know how much you ever hear about how what you do affects families, but my senior and my junior in high school will graduate multiple year letter women. They've gone to the Georgia High School state swim competitions, and we could not have done that. And the family strife that we would have had because we chose to homeschool and they could not have competed on the high school level has been eased so much. I run a Facebook group. My name is Lindsay Mast, by the way. I run a Facebook group that helps families navigate the Dexter-Mosley Act. And I will say it is such a beautiful piece of legislation because I can say to any of those moms who come and say, what do we do? Read that to people. It is so simple, and they cannot deny you what they have to provide for you, and that is equal access to sports. So thank you so much for supporting us in our choice to homeschool and supporting our kids.
Lindsay, thank you. That's the power of one right there, the power of a mom and a Facebook page. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I know how hard you work and what great bills you pass. I want to ask on Georgia Code 161280.
I got that memorized. What? Yeah.
You do? if I'm correct, that was written for adults, right? Not children. I'm pretty sure.
I was just joking. I really don't know.
Is crime, it's obscenity and related offenses, and this was written for adults. So under 2B, the thing that is always held against parents when they're contesting books is it has literary value. Well, under here, if we remove that little bit, that would change that for parents, I believe. It says material is obscene if it lacks serious literary value. So is that something we can look at? And one other thing I wanted to say, if possible, is how are we going to protect, if we do pass school choice? Ohio, I collaborate with a lot of people around the country. One is a state school board member in Ohio. Choice passed this year, and the first thing the state did was take away their policy writing ability. They are now going to be regulated by the state. So how can we wrap protections around something like that if we do pass school choice?
I think that kind of what we said earlier about how other states, if we have to actually stay abreast to what's happening in other states before those things trickle down to Georgia. So thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, the beauty of passing legislation is you hand it over to the bureaucrats, and then they do all the rulemaking around it. And really, that's where the sausage is. Yeah, the rules and regulations. So as a bill author and sponsor, I know this guy's going to be all over that and make sure it's rolled out the right way.
Yes, and you're another great patriot. I didn't mention Rhonda Thomas. Thank you for being here. She's, as far as protecting children and education issues in the state, she's been on the forefront of it. And yes, we can do that.
Okay, we have about 10 more minutes, I think. So whoever is the last in line, that'll be the last question so that we can all be mindful of your Monday night and get everybody out of here in a timely manner.
So I have a really quick, probably easy question. But first I want to say we have a kid here benefiting from the Dexter-Mosley Act who isn't quite ready to speak out loud, that wants to thank Clint Dixon and Mesha Mainor for their involvement in the school choice bill stuff that happened last year. Because,
What's his name?
Do you want to tell him your name?
Andrew Martin.
Hey, Andrew Martin.
And he wrote postcards to you guys and a couple of emails.
Andrew, what's your sport? What do you play?
I'm on a mountain biking team and a hockey team.
That's awesome.
All I got to say is if you enjoy politics, you're a great speaker, so I could see you up here on the stage. I couldn't do that at your age.
He's much braver than me. And the reason I wanted to get up here was because I have a question also regarding homeschooling. We are some of the exodus. We are only in our second year. We are in middle school in Gwinnett County. And one of the things that I've learned is that you are absolutely right. There is a huge push among kind of embedded homeschoolers that we don't want government intervention in our homeschooling. And homeschooling is sort of changing a little bit because we have so many people that are coming in that have had access to things that we're now surprised we no longer have. And along the lines of Dexter-Mosley Act supporting children's sports, there are things, I don't know the names of these bills, that support access for special needs students and that sort of thing. Just this year, some of our friends who were in high school had to fight real hard in Gwinnett County to be able to take the PSAT in order to prepare to take the SAT to enter into college. Those things, through all of the bureaucracy of education, are not really available readily to us as homeschoolers. And I'm curious what could be done at a state level because we're not really maintained by the county, but by the state as homeschoolers.
And I would say I had a couple of constituents, homeschool constituents, reach out to me, their parents did, about the PSAT, and I was able to kind of work through the Gwinnett County system and was able to get them the test. So just reach out to me if you got
And we really
issues, please call me.
appreciate that. But I'm curious going forward, how should we approach that to be proactive?
Yeah, the way we could at the state level would be as far as state funding to provide that from coming in from the state, either through a grant program or pushing it through the QBE formula as well, which is a scary formula that I don't completely understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that the funding for your school districts? Yeah. It's the same way in Florida. Nobody really gets it.
All right, Holly knows more about education than I do. I don't know if you, yeah.
I was trying to decide what to ask y'all. I want to talk about social emotional learning.
It's incredibly problematic. We don't want it. We do not want it. The amount of invasive surveys and excessive data collection that is taking place by way of social emotional learning, so much so you can look to Chicago City Schools. They had a massive data breach in 2021, I believe, where all of those students' critical information was compromised by a foreign entity. We need these surveys to stop. It is not enough to just opt out. What we are essentially doing is putting the future of all of Georgia and frankly across the country, students' lives at risk. This is data that is going to follow them for their entire life and could ultimately affect even college applications or their future career path. I believe firmly that if we were to ban all data collection and surveys, that the luster of social and emotional learning would leave the state of Georgia instantly. So it is my charge to y'all that we do something about this. These surveys are insane. Absolutely, and it's in Gwinnett, it's in every county. Social emotional learning taps into the innermost corners of a child's mind that should only be formed through the worldview that the parents decide. And it's trampling on our rights. We need to get social emotional learning out of our schools. And please, I want to see that be a priority this coming session. So, and I know y'all are the ones to do it. So thank you.
You guys, I'm sure you follow other legislators in other states. Sandy Salmon in Iowa, I think, proposed one last year that was pretty phenomenal, even called out Castle by name. So if you're interested.
I didn't realize I was going to be the last one.
It's got to be good, no pressure.
Yeah, right. My concern for education nowadays is the AI and the supplemental stuff that you were talking about that's going into the schools. My concern is that we have discovered that, and Clint, I think you know this, I don't know if anybody else does, but we have discovered that teachers are actually getting the CRT, DEI, emotional, thank you, SEL, through how they're speaking to our students, not a course. And so I'm really concerned about that, and I hope that y'all will address that as well, that, just teach, don't add your comments into it or whatnot. And the other thing about the AI, I think Senator Loeffler said something about it. I know in Gwinnett County that they're implementing that, and they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. I personally removed my child out of public schools and put her in a private school, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think that we need to allow the AI at all in our school system in the state of Georgia. So that's my call to you. Please help us out with that.
I mean,
you know what thing I think that's kind of interesting is I am a healthcare provider, and so in the medical space or healthcare space, we are taught to be objective. So when we are writing our notes, we can't put any subjectivity into the discussion. It's facts only. I really think that at the college level, teachers need to go through objectivity training so they don't input their subjective values, because I don't think they really understand that they shouldn't, but they also just professionally, they haven't been taught that you can't do that. I have an 11-year-old.
It's encouraged, though, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's encouraged by the school board to go ahead and put your subjectivity on it.
But if we stop it at the curriculum level for the teachers, that would overrule what the school board could say. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think
no,
that they
I
need to
get
be
where you're coming
taught
from. Yeah.
how to be objective.
Yeah, I don't mind AI. I think it it's an exciting new technology. I may be the first legislator. I gave a speech from the floor this year generated by AI. Yeah, it was on school choice. I said, write me a good speech, a 10-minute speech on school choice. They wrote the best speech I've ever read in my life, you know. It's a promising technology, but with any emerging technology, there's risks, and we need to properly look for that. But I think so much we pass off on government. At the end of the day, it's families that got to raise critical thinkers. And I tell this to my kids all the time. You've got to be able to look at information, think for yourself, and come to your own conclusions. We're raising a generation right now of people who just take in information as fact. I want a generation of critical thinkers who can think for themselves. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the AI thing, it follows them from kindergarten all the way up. And that scares me to know that, I'm going to piggyback on what Holly says. It scares me because what if there's data breaches and stuff? We don't know enough about it. And in the educational system, they're children. They're not adults who can say AI is great. You know, you can use it, but I don't think that the children should be subjected to it. Sorry, Clint.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the input. We've got to hit the school systems in their wallet. I mean, that freshman education chair, that is the biggest fear of school systems is, you know, losing funding. Any portion of funding, that's their biggest fear. They're looking for more. So if there's issues with AI, one disappointing thing, we passed a bill a couple of years ago banning, you know, the teaching of critical race theory, which we know that's just a slogan term. They can sink it in many other ways. But as it got muddied down, initially we were cutting 25% of the state funding if that was found to being taught in the school system, which it was taught here in our home school system. The evidence was found. If they had and I've heard from parents and teachers that it's being taught in other ways here in Gwinnett County. If we had the teeth in the bill, in the legislation, to cut funding, I think that would have went away, in my opinion. So cutting the funding would be the answer, in my opinion.
It's always a good answer. Okay, we are going to wrap up here. You guys we're going to go down the line. Your final words, anything you didn't cover tonight that you want to say, or or if you want to give some advice and help to give people some direction on how they can help. We'll start at this end.
I didn't know that question was coming. I will just close this. Thank you all for coming. I am encouraged by the people in the room that are running for the school boards. I have said this young gentleman right here came to my office and told me that he was going to run. I said, I think that you are running for the most important seat in American politics in the next generation. And I firmly believe that. So thank you for being engaged in this process and being part of this conversation. And if I can ever serve you from my lowly seat over there in Forsyth County, you've got a great one here. But if you need a little help, feel free to call me anytime.
Yeah, and I echo Senator Dolezal. It is the most important position to be held in government today. I commend both of y'all for stepping up and put yourself out there. Any way that I can support you, please let me know. Also got a bill I didn't mention, working with John Mason Long. He's in the back of the room. It helps being in your home turf. I can keep calling people out in the audience. But it has to do with civics. It would mandate that American civics are taught, in high school. But it would go a step further and talk about and teach them about the horrific, consequences of communism and fascism and a lot of the opposite and polar political narratives that we don't have in this country, and we don't need to move any closer to that. So that'll be a bill that I'll introduce this year.
I'll mention the money again. ScottHiltonGeorgia.com. Just a quick Google. No, in all seriousness, and I'll say this for both of us, we're in the battle of our lives next year, and so all it takes is one person in this audience. If you heard either of I and you like what we had to say, come join us. Join our team. It's going to take an army of prayer warriors, moms, dads, kids to get out and win this race, and we need your help. So thank you in advance for that, and thank you for the honor of a lifetime. There's 236 of us that serve and 11 million Georgians. I feel like I hit the lottery, and this is the greatest job on earth, and I'm just honored to serve. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. My website is MeshaMainor.com, MESHAMAINOR. You know what? There are so many things that you can do. You can come to meetings like this to learn, get more information. You can go to school board meetings. But guess what else you can do? You can come down to District 56 and knock on doors. You can pick up the phone and call. You would be surprised what 1 hour of time can do. So 678-460-6108. I gave just about everyone in here a card. You can call me and you can volunteer.
I just want to thank you all so much for your time tonight and for your hard work, for your dedication, for standing for parental rights, for kids, for being principled in today's world, for having courage in today's world. It is not common right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Just so you guys know, the only other thing tonight that I didn't say that I wanted to get in is 2/3 of American fourth graders are not reading on grade level in America. We have the lowest reading score since the 1980s, the lowest math scores in the history of the United States. Georgia is not doing any better than the stats I just gave you, actually worse in a lot of places. That is the future of our country. That is our kids. We are in a crisis in America. The people on this stage are passing bills and championing, trying to turn that ship around. Get off your tails and support them. Give them an hour, give them 5 hours, give them 40 hours a week if you can up until the next election. Do what you can. Get down to the House and the Senate and speak. Follow what's going on. We cannot afford to put your head in the sand and bring 5 people with you or 10 people with you. You have to do it. Go to momsforliberty.org, since I get the final say. Sign up, join your chapter, start a chapter, and thank you so much for being here tonight.